Hello, Durgesh. Good morning.
Hi, hey, good morning. How are you?
Oh man, Durgesh, you see, this is horrible. You threw me totally off because you are not the only, but you are one of the very few uh, Indians who joins this call, but it's actually morning for you, which is awesome.
Yeah,
Which is awesome because like every week I join, I'm like, oh, good morning, and everyone's rather upset at me because it's like 9:30 at night, and uh,
yeah. I mean, we live in the United States,
yeah,
so
yeah, that's
it's
right.
synchronized for the.
Yeah, that's right. No, I was it was like I was really thrown off because I no, this is good. So I'm hugging my coffee. So uh,
Wow,
yeah.
that's cool.
Oh, nice. Well, I'm gonna do a couple of housekeeping things as Harshit and Nidin and Nuno have joined. I'm gonna put the meeting minutes into the chat and do a couple of housekeeping items while others file in for the moment.
Yeah, I just want to ask you one thing. I saw the Layer5 Google Summer of Code page.
Yeah.
Will those be the same projects for GSOC 2020 as well?
Nah, so yes, in part. That's a great, actually, I'm going to write that down in the meeting minutes because that's a great thing to discuss today. It's sort of GSOC 2020. Uh, the yeah, the short answer is some of the work that we initiated last year. Um, th- there's a continuation of it, and actually, Durgesh, now that I say that, in specific, there's one that might hit a very sweet spot for you, and I'll describe that. Actually, um, it's funny now that I'm talking about where there's another there's another community member who's also an Indian that lives in Texas. He's in Austin as well, and I'll talk about
Okay.
the work that he's doing and how it may very well be right up your alley. So,
All right. Thank you, Lee.
oh yeah, no, this is okay. So good. So, Garish, good morning. Yeah,
Good morning, sir.
Hey guys, how are
and
you all?
oh
Good, sir.
yeah, I'm doing great. I actually while a couple of others come in, I want to get friendly with Harshit if we can. And by the way, Harshit, since it's I see Sachin a lot.
Yeah. Hi.
Hey, hey, ooh, a Hacktoberfest shirt. All right.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sorry, I'm still at work. Screens.
no, I, I thought it'd be great to get to know, have you introduced to some of the others on the call and get to know you some.
Yeah, the thing about Harshad and Sachin is totally nicknames. So I have a home nickname which is Sachin. So always use Sachin as
Okay.
my username and handle. So it's Sachin, and since I was cool, so I wrote it as a Sachin Cool, and that's why Sachin Cool was born.
Nice. See,
So everywhere I use the handle Sachin Cool. Well, I'm Harshit. I live in India. I work in a fintech startup called Small Case from India in Bangalore, and
Yeah.
I'm currently in my fourth year of college as well.
Are you from Bangalore? Even I'm from Bangalore.
Hi, from here.
nice. Yeah,
We're in Bangalore.
yeah, yeah.
So
Durgesh,
I
whereabouts in Bangalore are you from?
So I'm from I did my engineering at RNS Institute of Technology in Bangalore, which is affiliated to VTU Belgaum, and yeah, I've come for my masters over here in the United States.
Yeah, and Durgesh, that's up at SMU, the Southern Methodist University in Dallas.
Yeah.
So, well, I have to now. So, since you're in Texas and there's some state laws about these things, I have to just ask: are you vegetarian or are you an omnivore?
I'm an omnivore for now.
Okay, I don't know. There's just like there's a certain amount of barbecue that's mandated that you have to ingest, if you reside in the state. So I just want to make sure you're
I mean, it's very ironic in the United States. In India, being vegetarian is so economical, whereas over here, being non-vegetarian is more economical, way more economical.
I never thought about it like that. That's a great point. Also, you
I
might.
mean, in India, like I can get a meal for less than a cent for like around like $50, a very good meal, a pure vegetarian meal, huh? Over here, I have for the same meal I have to pay $8 or $9. It doesn't make much sense. So I I prefer being non-vegetarian.
Yeah. Plus, you might. Though vegetarians might live a little bit longer as well. So.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Very good. Well, so Anand is here, Nikhil is here. We've got the crew, or part of the crew. Let me be quiet and let Girish take the wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah, before that, I would introduce myself. This is my first time with community. It's like I'm Nidin. I'm from India, in southern part of India, Kerala. And you just said about being vegetarian or non-vegetarian. One thing I noticed being you place for some time is in India we don't use egg as a vegetarian thing, but I see a lot vegetarian stuff with egg in it. Is it common all over states?
Yeah, it is. It's quite common.
So in our place, I don't think we consider egg as a vegetarian dish, but
I mean, the thing is, if you want such kind of foods, you have to go vegan. That's it.
okay. So Sachin, Durgesh, myself, Nidin, and I work in right now. I'm in final year student like Sachin, and I work in cybersecurity somewhere in Coimbatore, somewhere near Bangalore. Okay.
Oh, cool.
It's
Cool.
not quite a company. It's a research center, part of campus, and we get projects from outside, and we work with it. Like we work for the not for companies, but the government stuff. That's about like we can move to other stuff. Girish.
Yeah. Nidin, sorry, I forgot that since we gotten to meet earlier this week, I'd forgotten that you hadn't. So that's great. Actually, while we're doing first rounds of intros and things, I'm gonna potentially make Sergio slightly uncomfortable by just saying, "Hey, welcome to the community call, Sergio." I don't know if you.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, there he is. Oh, good. I'm not. Let me take a step further and make it really awkward for you and say, hey, to take a moment, if you would, to introduce yourself, and I will get going with the meeting.
Oh, okay. Well, I am Sergio. I am from Guatemala. Last night I was hosting a meetup about Linkerd, about servicemen. Was really awesome. There were a lot of people of Mexico, and they are saying that Guatemalan people are doing interesting things here. So was really awesome for me. Well, now I am trying to prepare my talk for KubeCon Amsterdam this year, but I am waiting for some support for them to travel. Well, that's a little bit about me. Well, I teach at the university. I teach operating systems. I am involved in DevOps field. Well, that's me. Hi to all people.
Sergio, that's fantastic. By the way, is it Sergio or is it Sergio?
Yeah, Sergio. You can call me Serge.
Oh, very good. Okay, between Sachin and Serge, I'm getting it down. Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So just very briefly, so guys, by the way, Serge held that meetup, and the topic of Serge was service meshes, right?
Yeah, linker with Linkerd. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, very cool. I've got a bunch of questions for you about how it went and things. We'll slack a bit, so that this is great.
Okay.
All right, let's get started. If you guys haven't entered your name in the meeting minutes, please take a minute to go and enter your names. And also, people who would like to give a presentation, please feel free to do so. Lee has already shared the link to the meeting minutes in the Meet chat. So, or also it is available in the Slack Mystery channel. So if you guys actually grab that, that'll be wonderful. With respect to the demo, before I jump into the general topics, I just wanted to say one thing about demos. So really, the provider UI and the provider UI was actually presented last week. The SMPS one, I don't remember if I showed that as well last week, but I'm pretty sure, we did present the provider UI last week. The only thing was that people didn't get a chance to play with it. And I just gave them a presentation with the provider UI stating, that this is coming hopefully soon. So, now that we have merged, so people, should be empowered to actually give that a try. Now, before again, we jump into the general topics, I would like to welcome all the, the existing community members who have joined and the newcomers, who have joined the call for the first time. Thanks a lot for, taking your time to actually join this call. And I'm pretty sure, you'll actually find something interesting in this community, just to, kind of tag along. And, definitely, things to learn from the community as well. So jumping into the general topics, like I just mentioned, the provider UI part was actually an interesting part that was merged late yesterday. Along with that, we also merged another reasonably decent sized PR, which is actually the SMPS one, which is, I'm not sure, if you guys know what SMPS is, so I'm just going to tell what it is. So Lee just added a link to it. So SMPS is actually Service Mesh Performance Specification. So there is a repo under the Layer5 GitHub org where we have the specification file. It is right now, we have a sample file in YAML, which is kind of serving as a template right now. It is still being developed. It's still being worked on. So contribution from all the community members is very welcome. And of course, we do look for contributions in order to improve that. It is still in its preliminary stages. Now, as a first step towards making that much more official, what we have done is broaden the capability to export test results from Meshery in SMPS format. Now, along with that, we actually wanted to kind of give a complete use case there, wherein not just downloading an SMPS specification, but also the ability to upload an SMPS. By upload, I'm sorry, maybe upload is not the right word, is to kind of use the same SMPS specification contents and initiate another load test. So that way, you don't have to go to the form and enter some details in order to run a load test, but rather if you already have an existing load test which you just want to keep running over and over, you can actually use a CI, or probably in the next few weeks we'll have Meshery CTL. We will have Meshery CTL updated with the capabilities to leverage that capability in Meshery to run load test from the CLI directly. So eventually, it will be very helpful for automating the tests, so that once you have a single test, you just want to keep doing the same thing like n times, rather than using a kind of a script. We can actually leverage Meshery CTL, or even a script, like because it will be callable. So that's the complete story there. So the server side components are already there. The CLI part will be eventually worked on by the team members. So that was another interesting PR, and the other one is the user preferences. So we have a new section in Meshery called user preferences. Again, I don't want to talk too much about it right now. I think I already overspoke about the SMPS one rather than demoing it. But so the user preferences one, there are two parts to it: the UI and the backend. Nikhil and Raghav actually helped with the front end. I think Nikhil did most of it. I think the backend was completed before, so we kind of put that all together, and now it's merged. Is kind of what the message of the first one. The second topic for discussion is actually the Google Summer of Code 2020. Lee, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, now's the appropriate. So, well, I was gonna let me bring up a link that is the timeline for Google Summer of Code, which I think is a point of interest for a number of us. I've put in the link into the chat now, which is to say that, which is to say some of us that are on the call have been around since the time of Google Summer of Code 2019. Which is great, and some of those same folks have recently told me that they've been hired or gotten new roles. So this is much of our hope for all of you. The time frame for Google Summer of Code 2020 is that organizations like Layer5, like the CNCF, like many others, they have the deadline for their application to participate in this upcoming year passed this last February the 5th, I believe. And so Layer5 as an organization has put in its application to participate firsthand. Those organizations that are accepted will be announced on February 20th, if memory serves. Yeah, that's right. So it's our hope that we would be participating in a first-class way, so to speak. And to the extent that we don't, we would look to fall back to participating under the CNCF's org, just as we had done last year. I think the net of it is that it probably doesn't. Actually, I think the only way that it really affects students that are would-be participants is just based on the number of open slots that we can push through. So hopefully we'll be doing both, because there's actually a lot of work to be done. There's a long roadmap for Meshery. So that's that. So then the last note on that is, it's time to be generating a number of, taking a look at the roadmap and generating a few ideas that are either things that are highlighted on the roadmap, or things that you see as potential needs within the project, and suggesting those. And so suggest away. There's not a bad suggestion, or like, hey, they're all, and so it's time for us to work through those. I mean, if you don't have ideas, that's fine. Grab Garish, grab me, or another community member, and start brainstorming. I know there's a few of you considering, and we had this as a discussion a week or two ago, considering some things around chaos engineering. Last year, Meshery was a pretty young project, so a lot of it was around comparative performance benchmarking between various service meshes. That work has yet to, the functionality to perform that work is almost complete. The research and the publication of that research is well positioned to be performed in the 2020 timeframe. and it stands to be the most prominent set of performance works that, in the world on service meshes and their performance. More than that, we'll end up taking that set of work, and I've described this a couple of other times. We'll take that set of work and we'll bring that SMPS specification, we'll bring it to the Linux Foundation as a new standard for measuring the performance of service meshes. Anyway, there's a long list of things for everyone on this call to make a mark with their name. So yeah, so that's the 2020 summer code. On that next update, I'll just jump into it real quick and say, that's fantastic about Serge being here and his interest in already hosting meetups and doing it, on this particular topic. Serge, the longer that you spend time in this community, any number of things are possible in terms of hopefully how you benefit and how the community benefits from you being here. There's some of us that, for many of you, as you join the community, you're sent a small form that says, hey, tell us some things about you and things that you're looking to learn or accomplish or do, and because we want to encourage those and find your passions and go have a bunch of, and go nerd out with you. And some of that is like, hey, where are your social profiles and things, because we want to elevate the works that you're doing. Hey, come write a blog post over here. Hey, we'll help you get it, run a meetup. We'll help you actually. So Pratik at UT Austin, who's working on this performance research, we'll probably sponsor his travel out to KubeCon Amsterdam to present on some of the research that he's done. So the talk has been accepted, and we'll get him out there as an example of things that I'm hoping that you guys will all end up doing. So Serge, I'm glad that you're here. Let's talk about KubeCon EU as well, because there's stuff to parlay with.
Yeah. That's awesome. I don't know what is happened with that virus that is in China.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now.
I hope that they don't cancel the conference. So.
Yeah, me too, because that would put a lot of plans. Right now, they publicly stated that they're more or less just monitoring the situation. But there was a conference in Barcelona recently that was canceled, so that's not a Linux Foundation conference, but
yeah.
Yeah. So there is a community member. He's not on the call because I think it's like 1:30 a.m. his time. But Asuko, he's been championing much of the work around Helm and new Helm charts for Meshry. He lives just outside of Hong Kong, so when we're chatting in Slack, he's constantly talking about one, the virus, and then two, how he hates living in China because his internet access is blocked every which way. So he's going to move to Australia, I guess. Cool. So yeah, Durgesh, that's it.
Well, okay. Right. I'm not sure, what does this Slack thread by class? Is there? I mean, did somebody add that there?
My turn. My turn. Sorry, Girish, that's me. So, sorry if there's a noise. I'm outside. I'm walking, so now I'm talking. Quickly, we had this thread in the chat about Klaus, a new joiner, I think, that went through some difficulties actually running Meshry-CTL and then trying to understand what was the separation with Kubernetes and Docker and what it was doing actually at the end of the day. Lee, correct me if I'm wrong at any moment. And the thing went then, Lee had the very good idea to actually request for some documentation, let's say, creation about maybe a broader, let's say, a broader documentation or blog post that will cover not only like the Meshry, but also maybe some pre-technical aspect, like if you have a distribution that is maybe Linux, I don't know, or on Mac OS, how do you actually set up your system and then make it sure that you can start running also Meshery? So what I wrote quickly, and I pointed out to the January community meeting where I did the micro KTS demo, which was kind of from scratch, but it was on WSL. So my question here, sorry for taking just all this time, just to explain the point, but it was more like, who else have faced, maybe if we are here in the community meeting, but who else have faced like these kind of issues getting Meshery started?
Yeah,
like
I've been,
Meshery ready, kind of.
yeah, makes sense. I've been trying to run Meshery. You have to help me.
Yeah, I do think that people that we've paid, or not, I know that we've paid less attention as a community toward running Meshery in Kubernetes than we have running Meshery outside of the cluster and just running it locally in Docker. So we haven't rehearsed and practiced that installation a ton. It does work. The issue is there's a bit of a lack of documentation, and it's not nearly as slick as the installation that happens in Docker. The issue that Clausen specific was also having is like many of the rest of us. He's had a dysfunctional Kubernetes deployment where he couldn't expose services external to his cluster and figure that out. He was new to Kubernetes, new to Kubernetes networking, and then new to service meshes, and then and just kind of getting frustrated and lost in there. And so Nuno, I would resoundingly say that of some of the blog posts that you have in draft, or some of the quick start guides for various platforms on Meshery on Kind, or Meshery on Docker, Meshery on Kubernetes, Meshery on Windows, all that those are, to the extent that the Kubernetes one includes various options for how to expose Meshery, that would help. Actually, now that we say it, so the new, well, actually, we didn't write it down in this release. In this forthcoming release, we'll also have Helm charts, and so that also needs to be documented as what's hopefully maybe the best experience in terms of installing on Kubernetes.
After the Docker app, of course.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Exactly. Actually, one question along the lines of the Docker app. So once you create a Docker app, and I mean, you already have that. So once we create a CNAP bundle, do you know if we can I'm pretty sure there is a way to do this, but in the sense, like, do you know if there is an easy way to generate the Kubernetes manifest on the fly and get it deployed on Kubernetes?
So that's a good point, because I'm about to write kind of another blog post for something else. But like, you have the render of the Docker Compose. So the Kubernetes part, I don't think you can really render it. You can render the Docker Compose. That with Docker Compose, you can actually apply it to a Kubernetes orchestration. Okay, so that was the second half. Actually, I didn't really explain that quickly the last time, but the second half of my demo was actually showcasing that by changing the orchestration, or the orchestrator, to Kubernetes instead of Swarm, you could simply leverage the Docker app and install it on your Kubernetes directly. So there's no manifest per se. It will be more like the Docker Compose file. You can render it on the fly. But the Kubernetes part, I'm not sure.
Makes sense. Anything new before we actually jump on to some other topics?
No, I might have to leave because I have my continuation of travel. I just wanted to connect for these parts, actually. Have fun, good weekend. And for time being, I will push the Docker app bundle also. So I didn't complete fully Docker app, right? So I will have a second demo potentially next week.
Okay, and Nuno, do you expect that that's probably the missing bundle is probably why I was getting the error I was getting?
Yeah, I have to check your feedback. Sorry, Lee.
Okay,
I didn't get to GitHub yet, but I just saw like some title. You had some error with
sure, no.
with one of the I think it was the watchtower variable. So I will have a look and I will correct it, or I will explain why it didn't fail, or why it did fail. Sorry.
Nice, good. I'll catch you this weekend.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Thank you all. And
Thanks a lot for joining.
have a good meeting. Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.
Yeah, bye. All right. Okay, cool. So that topic is taken care of. Now, Sergio, like, you did mention that, like, you actually gave a workshop on Linkerd yesterday. Is there anything else you want to add to it?
No, only that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I'm,
Great.
you did tell, like, you did give us some decent information, like, but I just wanted to ensure that, like, you had something, I mean, you didn't have anything else to say before it jumped onto a different topic. I'm just confirming that. So.
If you want, I can explain what was the meeting about. So in the meetup, I tell about the basic of service mesh, all the theory behind the service mesh, how the gRPC are involved in that, the data plane, the control plane that use a service mesh in the internal thing, and that kind of things. And I made 2 workshops, well, in 2 parts. The first one just to implement some observability, and the second one to make a traffic split to implement a canary deployment. And that's, in summary, all my workshop of last night. So, well, that's it.
Cool. Yeah, that's fantastic. And thanks for sharing that information, like, with us. Awesome. Okay, let's move on to the next topics, like, which is the KubeCon EU 2020. Lee, you said you wanted to talk a little more about it. If you wanted to talk about it.
No, we can continue.
Okay. The rest is, again, like, the topics, like, you have added, which is the meetup in Austin next week.
Yeah, very briefly, the network service mesh is one of the meshes that wow, there's a lot of meshes in the same sense. It's one of the meshes that Meshery supports. The principal, the distinguished engineer, that's one of the main stewards of network service mesh, lives here in Austin. And so I've forced his hand to come over and talk at the meetup. I'll pop over the link now, but I think we end up having it this next week before on Thursday. So we'll have an update next week how that went.
Cool. That's great. Awesome. And now the next topic for discussion is the Layer5 UEM Jaipur partnership. So based on the information Lee already shared with me, there is a meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Unfortunately, I cannot join because this is a long weekend in Canada, and I'm going to be traveling. So Lee, do you want to share any more information about that?
Briefly, so that wow, I totally lost my train of thought. Yeah, the important thing, I mean, this is significant for those that are going to that university, which is great. My hope is that this is the first of a couple of universities that we'll establish these programs with. We do have one with UT Austin already, but the other reason why this is significant is for those who do not attend UEM Jaipur and those who are maybe not attending university, that we'll be seeking some additional mentors. So that I'll probably send out a call for mentors, kind of like and even if you're going to university, if you've been here in the community for a while and you feel comfortable helping steward and guide someone else, then it could be an opportunity for you to welcome a new community member and help them through a project as an alternative to Google Summer of Code. So that's great. So
okay. So in case if we are like unable to participate in GSOC 2020, we can come and do the internship in Austin. That's what you're saying, Lee?
There's a couple of things in there. The thing I was just saying is slightly different than that, and that is that I expect we will get more students from specifically from UEM Jaipur based on this partnership than we will have mentors for, that then we will be able to do justice to, do right by in terms of the amount of time spent. And so one thing is, if there's anyone that wants to mentor a student, let's talk about that, and that would be fantastic. Durgesh, yes, you're right that there are a couple of things here, and I wish Raghav were on the call, because we've talked with him about this. We talked with a few folks about this, that to the extent that Layer5 isn't a participating organization in GSOC, or to the extent that Meshri is participating in the CNCF's GSOC participation, hopefully we'll have a few different slots there in GSOC 2020. Yes, it's true that thirdly, and it would be really weird if it did, if neither of those two things panned out, that yes, that we will be offering a couple of internships with a similar stipend to what's in GSOC 2020 for what's really essentially the same stuff, same projects, but through Layer 5. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Excellent. All right, so let's move on to the next topic, which is the demos. Now, before we jump right into the demos, is there any other topics you guys would like to discuss before we jump into the demos? All right, I'll presume that it's a no, and let's get right into the demos. Nikhil, are you ready to actually share your screen to showcase the user preferences?
Yes, sir, sure. Actually, there was an issue that I came up with for that. I shared my window with you. Shared the screenshot. What issue I was coming out with. So I'm still stuck there. And apart from that, the user preferences section is already uploaded. But the issue that is coming up is that the changes that I'm making, the preferences that I'm saving in the section, it's not persistent. That is, the changes are not in there when we switch from that section.
I see.
So I was just hoping to add some connect it with the backend to save the variable. So I was trying to make some edit in the code, but I guess there's some error coming.
Gotcha. I will definitely look at it and I'll get back to you. I'm sorry, I'm distracted between a few things here. I will get back to you after this call.
No
But,
issues.
yeah, feel free to share what you have, and we will revisit the bug after this call.
Yes, just a second. Actually, it's opening in the. For that one, I'd like to know something regarding that issue that he just pointed me out. Just yes. A new issue was recently opened. I'll share the link of the issue in chat regarding adding an anchor on each settings tab. I'm not sure whether we can add an anchor to the tab element of a React or not, because on converting it to an HTML, when it is displayed, it's showing like a button, but on the backend it's a tab container. So how to add an anchor on that, I can.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And one more thing I had say that the provider thing that was just updated recently. After a few minutes of inactivity, it gets disconnected. Means we need to again set up the provider. Is there any particular reason for that, or it happens by default?
Oh, that's interesting.
Because today I was working after when I was working on this local for the local development. After a few inactivity in the especially on the hosted part, when it is not accessed, after a few time it gets dealing or whatever I can say. So this link gets popped up again and again on the local network.
I see.
So I thought there was some error on my development, but then I again pointed to Meshi and I found out that it has not been linked. So I again connected with the provider and that was again working.
Gotcha. Oh, that's good. That's good information. Yeah. I think I had set the cookie to expire in a few hours. I you know what? Like, I'll just check on that. Yeah, that's a good thing to check.
Okay. This is the user preferences section that I just added. It will basically previously we were sending the user statistics of the user with the machine backend, but now we can add a capability for the user whether they want to share the status or not, or the results of performance. We can do this with the action of a toggle button. Currently, it is not working. I will disable it because I was working for the saving the backend part. So this is the preferences that happen, and soon there will be new change so that it will persist even when we change out of the move out of the section or log out, and when we log out.
Cool.
That's it.
Excellent.
So, hey, Nikhil, on the can you, if you don't mind, actually, I should have asked this before you stopped sharing. Can you reshare and do a quick test for me? I don't know if this is. I don't know. We might have a small bug, and maybe you already acknowledged it. But do the user preferences persist when you navigate away from the preferences screen and navigate back?
No, sir. Actually, they don't.
They do. Okay.
That's why I said this code that I was making changes in the code.
Oh.
But as you can see, it's not working now because I have changed a few code for a bit,
Okay.
and the issue was coming. So that's
Okay, very good. And then were you able to also confirm that prior to when it was working, that in fact those preferences were being persisted in the cloud provider? Like to the extent that you logged out, logged back in, were those preferences retrieved?
no, actually, what I noticed previously when I made the PR, that actually when I made the PR, I made the code. I was only sending the new boolean variable to the API. I was just setting it for the time being, and I guess the actual variable that is stored in the store.js file or the library, it is not being changed. It is only being changed for the for that small duration on which we are on that page. That's why to persist, we need to change the variable that is stored or the data that is stored in the backend. After that, it will show even when we log out or change the local provider, I guess.
Okay. And then very good. And then Nikhil, while you don't happen to have. Okay, very good. I'll hold my question.
Is there a sentence or shall I?
No, I'm sorry.
Stop it.
No, thanks. No, I was going to ask about the provider UI and consolidating the two drop downs into one, and but I think you.
Actually, I had a question for that also. There were two tabs for the provider UI. One was the local provider over here, and other was the Myshree cloud provider, I guess. And on the drop down, there was a single option that was same as that of the what should I say option mentioned in the button. So I didn't get that thing that what to merge.
Okay, so actually, you showing this is probably a good refresher for those who haven't, or a good fresher for those who haven't seen it. So
Yes. I had a question that there is a drop down which mentions the same thing as the select option.
right,
So you're asking me to merge both of them into one drop down, right?
correct.
I guess if instead of drop down, if there are two buttons, then also it's okay.
Yeah, it's our intention to very shortly bring forth probably two other providers, and actually those are probably with the two universities, with UT Austin and with UEM Jaipur, is to probably make them an option as well. And so what we also want to encourage users to do is to choose the Meshry Cloud as their default provider, because it's the one that's going to provide that public service of the Service Mesh Performance Index. So having it in a, as opposed to having buttons, having it in a drop-down is maybe might work well. The other thing to brainstorm there, Nikhil, is that the notion that when people, and by the way, let me explain what providers are in Meshry, I think, for everyone who's on the call, and then this will also help with brainstorming about the user experience. And that is that the concept of providers in Meshry is relatively new. It's certainly new to the extent that we're exposing that as a choice to users. So we're going to make a release of Meshry, this weekend, right? And it'll have this new providers UI. And this is the first experience that people have with Meshry begins to change, where when they pull it up for the first time, it will say, choose maybe we should change terminology. I don't know, but anyway, choose a provider. This is an extension point in Meshry. This is a point wherein there's an interface, an API here, that if other vendors or other communities want to make their own provider, that they can. And the purpose of a provider is mostly around persistence. Right now it's around authentication and persistence. Maybe it will be around other points of extensibility. When a user chooses to, like to date, all users have been inherently using the Meshry Cloud provider, which just means that they've been authenticating through their social auth. And that creates a session, and that helps save things like their performance test results. It helps save things like what adapters they've got connected and how they've got a few configurations in their environment, such that when they leave Meshry and they come back a few days later, they sign back in, they have a nice experience because they've got some settings that they've made, and so. Yeah, hopefully that accomplishes both kind of describing what a provider is, and then the fact that we want to collapse those two choices into one dropdown, with the expectation that we would have a few more providers soon. And then I've got an ask of the community, to the extent that you hopefully now understand that concept of the user choosing a provider. It's my belief that most that spin up Meshry won't really know what's going on when the first thing that they're prompted with is to choose a provider, and they'll say, well what do you mean? What does this mean? So I think that somewhere on the page we need to be able to, either as a tooltip or as a hyperlink where it says provider, or somewhere we need to be able to say, like, what is a provider, and describe to them that there are any number of remote providers, or there's one single local provider. The caveat to using the local provider is that the persistence of your session and the things that you do with Meshry will be ephemeral, will live and die with the Meshry containers. And so the benefit to choosing a remote provider is that stuff would be persisted. Does anyone have a suggestion on how we what that experience should be like? How we should.
Considering no one has to say anything, I just have one more query. There you for the desired behavior on this issue and on navigate to the service mesh tab if adapter is not connected. So in the desired behavior, you mentioned that through the user base stating that an adapter for this type of service mesh is not connected. Uh, what kind of a page basically should I display or the user should walk?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for the other non-native English speakers on the call, or what have you, let me regurgitate the question so that hopefully everybody's on page with us. And that is that today when you're using Meshry, you will hopefully have a few different adapters available to you by default. A few different adapters for different types of service meshes. One of the adapters that, but people may choose to remove an adapter or not deploy one. And while, like you're seeing in this animated GIF, that there's only 2 adapters deployed here, Istio and Linkerd, and if that's the case, then maybe in the left-hand column, the navigation menu, maybe we shouldn't show the other service meshes to which adapters are not active. Or maybe we should, and to the extent that we are, which is the behavior today, we are, but when you click on a menu item for like network service mesh, that as an example, and there's no adapter for it, nothing happens. The user just clicks on the menu item and nothing happens. What we had in the past was when a user clicks on a service mesh and there isn't an adapter present or one that's been configured, what we would show them on the right-hand side in the main section of the screen, we would show them a small button that says, a small statement that says, no adapters are configured. Click here to configure your to connect to an adapter, and it would basically take them to the settings page, the /settings page. So that's my suggestion, is that what we would show them, Nikhil, is a button to direct them to the settings page, specifically to the to the adapters tab on the settings page.
So you want a whole new page for will that just contain a button or a text saying that you haven't configured the adapter? I was thinking that if you can just navigate them or move them to the settings tab by showing a snack bar that you're already using, that you haven't configured an adapter, please configure it when using this section or this option instead of moving to a midway page.
Right. Yep. That's a valid suggestion. And I wonder to what extent it's so. I wonder to what extent that would be a jarring user experience, or one where we're generally not using notifications for that type of a thing today. Like it does, like your first suggestion maybe makes a little more, is a little more intuitive, I think, where someone would click, there isn't an adapter present, so it would, instead of landing them on an intermediate page, it would direct them all the way, it would deep link them all the way into settings, all the way to the service meshes tab. And if it did, I think that can be okay, but it would need to have, and maybe this is what you were saying, it would need to have a toaster notification or some other notification on the screen saying no network service mesh or whatever type they clicked, adapter is connected,
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Yep, that would work as well. Yeah. Getting fancy.
Okay.
you're getting fancy on that, Nikhil. That's cool.
Wait, wait. That's from my.
As we near the top of the hour, it is to the extent that everyone else has suffered in this regard. I must make Alex Zunez suffer in this way as well. For any time that someone joins the community call for the first time, we want to give them a very warm embrace. So Sachin and others have suffered. But Alex, thanks for joining today. Do you want to introduce yourself to the group?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me here. I was actually browsing the meeting notes, and then I got a nudge. And I thought might as well just join. So that was definitely good timing. Yeah. So I've been working from. I started as a developer about 15 years ago, and I've worked my way through ops and then architecture. So I've got I think a lot of experience from building systems of scale. And now I'm trying my own thing with a consultancy firm we've spun up. So yeah, it's interesting times.
Nice. And then do you have a link to your consultancy?
Yeah, I can paste it here.
Nice.
Cool.
As a matter of fact, we may put that to use in a few different ways. That it's not infrequent that folks are looking for help in the community, or more help than we can give them. That's great. Now, educate the rest of us. How do we enunciate that?
It's a good question. So my last name is Uzunis. So because I'm lazy, one of the easiest solution, which is Uzi. So I pronounce it like the Uzi gun, which makes a funny joke as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just talking about Uzis yesterday. I was thinking about bringing one with me to work. And just,
nice. You would definitely have a lot of friends. Yeah.
Oh, very good. It's great. So thanks for joining. It's very, very good to have you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Girish, we're other items that we've got to address today.
Oh, it's Girish here. Hey, man.
Hey.
I haven't spoken to you for ages. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's nice to have you here. Yeah, this is cool. Great. Cool. So there's just one last thing. Since we have a minute and 10 seconds ish time, there was a quick demo. I just wanted to show. It's going to be very brief. I'm going to try my best not to talk much about it. Hopefully it'll be self-explanatory. So let's start. So this is the same demo which was shown last week. But I'm not going to go into the demo, so people have seen the screen. Nikhil already spoke about it, so I'm just going to go inside the default, the local provider. Now, one of the things that was recently added is the SMPS download support. So if you have multiple results or a single result, when you click on one, it'll actually give you the option to download. So this is actually the new capability. Now, when you hit download, you'll actually see a YAML file was downloaded. I am not going to go into the specifics given the time, but feel free to play with it. So right now this is in master, and like Lee mentioned, we will be making a release probably today or tomorrow. So this is the first part, and then the second part to this is actually the capability to now use this file to trigger a load test against Meshery. Now I'm going to actually try to present another window here. Just give me a second. All right. So if you guys can see this screen, can you guys see the screen? It's a Postman window.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So here you can see this is pointing to my local Meshery. Now this is the URL. One requirement to that is actually there's a query parameter called the name. So it's a test name. The body here. Now this is actually the contents from my YAML that we just downloaded. I mean, this is like a sample. A slightly different one, but here you can see it contains an endpoint URL, the start time, the end time, etc. So what Meshery does is it actually absorbs this derives the information for a load test, and it actually runs a load test. Now, one other requirement, which again, due to the recent changes, is actually there is this cookie which actually is needed for selecting a provider. If you don't provide this, it'll just return back like a HTML page with the provider contents. So I have set this, and so now if I hit the load test, you should see it takes a few seconds. It's waiting, and once the test is done, you should actually see all the results come back in like a shot. And the reason for this is that we are using server sent events for running the load test. This is again was done for making things easier to use from the UI. So that's the reason why it actually waits for the load test to finish, and once it finishes, it actually sends the entire result. And the last response here is actually the JSON result. Now, eventually, maybe we can actually make this into a SMPS format as well. But that's everything. And thanks a lot for being patient with me. And we've already, gone like past 2 minutes. So I'm just going to stop presenting and open it up for questions. All right. It's Friday. Have a nice weekend, guys. And see you guys next week.
Nice.
Thank you.
Oh, very good. All right. See you guys. See you, Girish. Bye, Shubham.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Happy weekend, guys. Bye.
Yeah. Yes.
Bye bye. Have a good weekend.